I'm Daphne Allen, editor of MD+DI, and I'm pleased to be with you today. I'm going to be speaking with two representatives from the Medical Device Innovation Consortium. I'm pleased to welcome Pamela Goldberg, President and CEO, and Joseph Sapiente, Vice President of Clinical Science and Technology with the Medical Device Innovation Consortium. I took note of your organization because I saw that you're exploring the convergence of connectivity, information, and software in your new digital health initiative. And I'm really excited to learn more. It seems like the consortium has several active programs on software as a medical device, software in a medical device, mobile medical applications, interoperability, wireless medical devices, and so much more. So thank you both very much for joining Biomed Device today. Can you explain a little bit more about the Medical Device Innovation Consortium, and then maybe take a minute to explain your roles?
Certainly. So I'll start. Pamela Goldberg, President and CEO of the Medical Device Innovation Consortium. We are a public-private partnership focused on regulatory science in the device industry. We are a membership-based organization and it was historically just medical device companies, but as the landscape has changed, and Daphne, thank you for referencing all the software implications for the device industry, that we have expanded our focus and therefore our membership. We work closely with the Food and Drug Administration, with NIH, with CMS, and industry participants. We also are all working, as everyone in our industry does, with and on behalf of patients. And so patients are our true north. We really work hard to make sure that what we're doing is in the best interest of patients, and with the goal of getting patients better products faster, safer, cheaper. And we do that through research in a number of areas. We started out a decade ago with focusing purely on clinical science and regulatory science. We have expanded over time through the use of real-world evidence to encompass a number of areas. And over the last couple of years, we've noticed how digital health has a greater and greater impact on our field. And so we have stood up a new vertical in digital health to encompass an array of areas. And I'm sure Joe would be happy to talk about what he does in this area and what his areas of focus are. Joe?
Thank you, Pamela. And Daphne, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you guys today. And so as Pamela mentioned, I'm Joe Sapiente. I'm the Vice President of Clinical Science and Technology. I joined MDIC in February of this year to lead the Case for Quality group. And I've been a part of MDIC even during my industry days, very active in MDIC from an industry perspective. I was the industry chair for Case for Quality and got to know MDIC in the early 2012, 2014 timeframe. My role today as the head of the Clinical Science and Technology is to really bring the diverse stakeholder group that MDIC convenes across patients and providers, as well as regulatory groups, technology developers, medical device industry, on that, as Pamela mentioned, that regulatory science. So in Case for Quality, we talk a lot about process improvements within quality, changing that conversation from compliance to a focus on quality and product quality and patient safety. But under the clinical science and technology, we now have an opportunity to really look at it from all areas of clinical science, clinical diagnostics, digital health, data science. And so it's a much more diverse network of stakeholders. And it's really in that data collection. It's in the implementation of and use of data. It's helping small startup companies with early feasibility. And then the vast, broad topic of digital health today has given us the opportunity to really get more engaged with areas, as Pamela mentioned. Our diverse membership now includes the technology developers. So a group that maybe wasn't as active in medical device technology in the past is much more active now because of the digital healthcare path that we're all on.
Okay, excellent. Can you tell me a little bit about that digital health initiative? Why did you seek to, have a special initiative for that?
Well, it really was recognizing the language in our industry is changing, and therefore the areas of focus are also changing. And we were doing a lot in the digital health realm and really wanted to celebrate that. And as our community grows and changes, that we wanted to celebrate that growth and embrace that broader community that wasn't just about medical device companies, but about the technologies that are applied to the medical industry and medical technologies in a greater way.
Okay. And, as you mentioned, the industry is certainly evolving. Can you explain, why digital health is exploding, and is it just a fad, or is healthcare really changing, before our eyes?
So
Well,
Pamela,
go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say that, as Pamela mentioned, from an MDIC perspective, within what we had referred to originally as the data science and technology, we had a number of initiatives already ongoing that really represented some areas within digital transformation. And I think, to your question about is it a fad or is it here to stay? I think when you think about pre-pandemic, a lot of these activities were ongoing, and there were a lot of conversations about software as a medical device and interoperability and things like that. But what's accelerated the digital health technology and digital transformation is the fact that so many stakeholders that had been having these conversations are now accelerating the technology, or they're accelerating their initiatives because of the way we're operating today. We're operating much more remotely, whether it's telemedicine or it's patient engagement with physicians and vice versa. We've seen the trend really accelerate. So it's definitely not a fad, and it's really picked up in terms of pace and timing. And that's another reason why the digital health vertical that we launched in the summer really leverages the work that we were already doing and recognizes the opportunities where there were these conversations about bringing software as a medical device forward. But now that's accelerated, and that's another reason why the digital health vertical was put up to really recognize all of the opportunities and the collaboration that is necessary to bring these things forward much faster.
And I'll just add, Daphne, that we recognize that there was a time when connected devices weren't as pervasive as they are today. But now, whether it's software as a device, software in a device, and then you mentioned interoperability, which is critical for healthcare as we go forward, and trying to find ways to enhance interoperability and improve interoperability. All of these things really make this mission critical for us as an organization. What Joe hasn't yet mentioned, but his team is working hard to explore things like 5G, and what is the impact on healthcare and medical devices related to the shift to 5G. And that's a great example of an opportunity and a challenge for our industry that hadn't been thought about because there weren't as many connected devices as there are today. And I think that things that like alternate reality, virtual reality was another area that people didn't associate necessarily with healthcare, with medical devices, and yet it's becoming a more and more important piece. So what we say at MDIC is that we look at where the changes are happening in our industry, and we help the marketplace address those challenges and opportunities on behalf of the regulators, on behalf of industry, on behalf of patients, and all the various stakeholders that are important to this industry.
Well, that's good news, with all the changes going on. Do you have any advice for traditional medical device companies that, are either just starting out on their own digital journey, or any, particular challenges that you see them going through?
Well, my first approach historically has always been to kind of think big and start small. Identify an area that is within your business model, and take on that opportunity. So if you're a digital health company within software, there's a lot of opportunity to understand and appreciate change control within software and how quickly those changes can be adopted. But the regulatory path may not necessarily be as quick as necessary. So there's an example already now where one of the work streams that we're putting up is to provide examples of how companies can approach change control and change management and decision making. But if you're in the manufacturing space and you're on a digital transformation within your manufacturing space and you want to be more effective and more efficient, there are opportunities there from an advanced manufacturing perspective. That too is digital transformation. We consider that as part of our digital health vertical as well. But as we look at the changes and the rapid change and interaction with patients and providers, a company could look at their transformation in health and digital health from AI, if they have algorithms that are learning, or if they're using AI for reliability and service. So it's within their space and within their expertise, because like digital healthcare and digital technology, it's very broad, it's multidisciplined, and so you don't want to be great at everything, but you want to pick some of the things that you're good at and start there. It would be my recommendation.
Pamela, anything to add about how to help traditional medical device companies approach this?
Well, I think that as the traditional medical device companies look to expand and explore ways to make their devices connected, one of the many hurdles that we're trying to address is cybersecurity, for example, and recognizing how important that is to digital transformation. And it isn't a matter of if a company will get hacked, it's how do they respond when they get hacked. And so even in the design of devices, we're encouraging people to be thinking about cyber risks, from not just as an add-on at the end of the creation of a new device, but really in the design of that device to make it more secure, to make it less vulnerable, looking at the vulnerabilities that exist with our device and the opportunities to for hackers to impact that, and so for companies to therefore fight against that and work toward improving their systems to accommodate that.
Right.
Yeah, and the cybersecurity is a great example in how it really bridges almost every other initiative that we're doing within the digital health space. It really is a foundational requirement in terms of making sure that you have considered cybersecurity as part of any of the projects that we're working on.
Okay, excellent advice. Thank you. Joe, you mentioned, the change control work stream, and I know you have several other ones. Can you speak a little bit about, the different work streams as part of the initiative?
Yeah, sure. So what we've done is we've taken an approach with the digital health vertical, and with guidance and advice from our steering committee very early on, we prioritized the areas that we wanted to start first. And so where we started first was software as a medical device. and recognizing that the FDA had already started the pilot and had conducted the pilot in the pre-certification program. And so we wanted to leverage elements within that program. And kind of getting back to my think big, start small, we've looked at each of those elements of that pre-certification program. So you've got change control, you've got the excellence appraisal, and some of the areas, and we've broken them down into subsets or sub-working groups. And with the idea that in the early phases of these projects, for example, change control, a short-term win for us will be being able to create a library of successful practices that will demonstrate for other companies how to apply and approach a change decision that may or may not require a submission, and what does that look like, and how do you interact with the agency. And so we're creating a library to focus on that. And that's really the approach that we've taken with each of these work streams, is what can we accomplish in the short term? Is it a library? Is it case examples? Is it creating somewhat more of a process map that folks can follow with examples? And then in the mid to longer term is what parts of that process are much more transformational and will take a little bit longer to implement, but in the long run would really transform the regulatory process that companies can follow and the interactions that they'll have with the other stakeholders, most importantly on the regulatory side.
Okay. Why was it important to break these into different work streams? I mean, would companies be going through all this at once, or, are different, team members working on different aspects of, a company's digital journey?
So we were very mindful of the fact that we had a number of projects that crossed over or were synergistic with the digital health vertical. And when we did the initial prioritization of the projects, we had 4 areas that came up. 2 of them were software as a medical device and software in a medical device. And the other 2 were projects that we already had ongoing. So cybersecurity and then AI and ML. And when we really looked at software as a medical device, very similar to digital health, it's a broad topic. And when you look at things like the excellence appraisal, it's very similar. That approach to excellence appraisal or site appraisal is very similar to what we already have going on in case for quality under the voluntary improvement program. So we're leveraging the synergies that are there. The team felt it was really important to break them down because, again, we're convening a very broad group of stakeholders. It's all voluntary, and we wanted to demonstrate some short-term wins, some early wins. And we felt that being able to provide examples in the short term would create the momentum necessary to bring in folks that could then take on the mid and longer term projects. So, and we heard from a lot of our stakeholders that they understand the process, but they really wanted to understand how companies were leveraging and using the process. So that's where the idea of having case studies and examples was the early win or describing the early win. So that people could understand, well, okay, I'm here, how do I do it? And how have others been able to leverage the application and we're successful? And that's the journey we're on right now.
Okay, excellent.
And I'll just add that our member companies really come to the table, and together we determine the priorities. So it's those companies that have software as a medical device or software in a medical device, along with the FDA, are recognizing what are the important pieces. And so the value of membership for the companies that do participate is helping to set those priorities, setting what is important today for folks in the marketplace, and what can MDIC and its cohort help to affect change.
Okay. And you've mentioned FDA a couple times. Can you explain a little bit about how FDA and maybe other regulators, participate in MDIC?
Well, MDSC has a very unique relationship with the FDA. We were really created, as I mentioned, a decade ago when there was some friction between the medical device industry and the FDA. And the 2 groups came together and said, let's create an organization that can be our Switzerland, so we can address challenges and opportunities together rather than on opposite sides of the table. And so we provide that venue, and we probably have over 100 people from the FDA who are actively engaged with our organization. So they're seeing challenges and opportunities probably in a very different way than industry is seeing them. And yet when we all work together to create solutions, it's magic.
It's great to hear. The collaboration is great to hear. So I have kind of a big picture question, and should every sector of the medical device space be looking at digital health, and is it going to be reshaped by connectivity, software, data? Like how far should digital transformation go in healthcare?
Well, I look at it from a total life cycle management perspective and all the elements. So if you are a medical device company and you're commercializing products and you're in this digital health area, you're engaging with the commercialization process with its concept and feasibility, and how do you engage in bringing key opinion leaders together and developing your technology. That now has to include the patients and patient advisors in your product development. And so recognizing, as I mentioned earlier, how diverse the digital health and digital healthcare technology and digital transformation are, it really is a total product lifecycle management approach. And so you really have to recognize all of the stakeholders. You have to engage with all of the stakeholders. And I think that that's a challenge for companies to engage at the right time with the right groups, but also recognize that this is something that you can do in your manufacturing space. You can do this in your product development. You can do this in your clinical design and generating real world data. So there's a lot of areas that under that umbrella that we call digital health and digital healthcare that you can go. So it's something that I look at and consider that it's really that total life cycle management approach and all of the tools that are available that you can apply through that commercialization process along the way.
Okay. And I would agree with Joe. We always focus on the total product life cycle, that's really critical. Products go through iterations and transformation and change. And so one of the areas during the pandemic that we saw tremendous growth was in the realm of diagnostics, and how the realm of diagnostics is changing rapidly in response to the needs of the marketplace. We ran a forum about a month before the world shut down on emergency use authorization, and how that it's amazing to us that has become a household word. And whereas when we ran this conference and brought people from around the globe to talk about the challenges and opportunities of emergency use, that it really was something that was used very rarely and occasionally, and now it's become a constant. So that speaks to the importance of having stakeholders from all the different constituencies as part of the process throughout the total product life cycle.
Joe, you mentioned Case for Quality and some other efforts in the MDIC. Can you explain how the Digital Health Initiative will connect with these other programs? And I believe some of them touch clinical science, health economics, other elements. Can you explain how it all connects together?
And so that was actually one of the assessments that we went through very early when we were speaking with some of our members and the FDA when we first started talking about putting up a digital health vertical, because there were already recognized crossovers and synergies. And Pamela's mentioned 5G, the augmented reality, virtual reality, and the extended reality. We have areas within cybersecurity, computation, modeling, and simulation, all of these areas where there is already a digital transformation component and folks already on that journey, and really recognizing the added opportunities within software as a medical device, software in a medical device, the device interoperability, wireless medical devices, patient-generated health data. These were all things that we were monitoring closely and watching very closely. But now we were asked to really put this forward and leverage the crossover. And one really good example where there is a crossover is in that real-world evidence generation. And we've already met as an organization with our stakeholders within NEST and within the patient, health economics and patient value to make sure that we're not doing work that's competing for the same resources, but it's complementary and it bridges. And how do we leverage that work so that we're not creating redundancy? And that's the approach we took when we put up the digital health vertical back in August, because we took all of the ongoing projects within our data science and technology. We combined them with the digital health vertical. We've created a new initiative under digital health and technology, combining the groups. We brought in the folks that were in our data science and technology working group and sponsored working group and combined them with the digital health initiative working group so that we're sharing those ideas, we're sharing the strategies and establishing priorities. So we've transformed essentially ourselves. We've recognized that this digital health vertical is something that is here. It's like, as you mentioned, it's not a fad, right? And there's a lot of great opportunity under that umbrella. And so we're going to continue to operate those programs and bring those programs to create playbooks, frameworks, white papers, creating those science tools that people can then can use and implement as it complements the work within the digital health vertical under things like the software as a medical device, software in a medical device, and so on.
And just if I can frame that a little more, that MDIC really has 4 main pillars. And so our clinical science is really core to who we are and who we've always been. But we also have, as Joe mentioned, the Health Economics and Patient Value Initiative that looks at the payer environment and how industry and the payers can work together to create solutions. Our National Evaluation System for Health Technology that we call NEST is really using real-world data, real-world evidence to enhance the regulatory pathway to enhance clinical trial processes. And then adding digital health really can bring those pieces together. And so digital health is that 4th vertical for us. So it's our clinical science, our digital health, our health economics and patient value, and NEST. And we really work hard to find the synergies among those different areas to benefit all.
Excellent news. How can our audience get involved?
Oh, that's easy. Well, so it's really the members of MDIC who drive the work that we do and the pathways that we take to create solutions on behalf of all. And so if folks are interested in becoming a member, that's probably the best way to have a seat at the table and be driving the change that we want to see for our industry. So I really encourage folks to come to the table, join us, reach out to Joe or myself, and we will help you become a member of MDIC and get engaged in our work streams. It's really our members who drive the work and make these initiatives happen and successful. Joe talked about frameworks and a variety of efforts that we do to move pathways forward. And it's our members who roll up their sleeves and take an active role in affecting that change. So please join us.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Pamela and Joe, for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daphne. It was a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully we'll hear from some of today's participants.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more progress from MDIC. Thank you.
Thank you.